Grateful to have you here, Judy, and welcome. Congratulations on having a chapter in Sacred Hearts Rising, the Sparks of Life. It's been an awesome day full of interviews with this book launch, and you have written one of the chapters, and kind of enjoyed your bio, and I want to share it with everybody.
Thanks for having
Couple
me.
things. Brush cut sweet peas are my favorite flowers.
Are they as well? Well, a friend of mine has her gardener at the greenhouse starting the shoots for me so that I'll be able to plant them when it's time. So.
Well, here in Arizona, if you didn't plant like in January, they're done. It's too hot for them now. So we do it very early here, and I have to remember to do it that way.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's an adjustment.
Yes. So it says Judy Perdomo had no idea growing up that her curiosity would lead her to live what some recently described as a really big life. She's a mom to 3 kind, handsome, talented young men and a 16-year-old tabby who still hunts. She loves raspberries and the scent of fresh cut sweet peas. Waking up at the beach in good old-fashioned road trip. Judy's a collector and connector of good people. Her friend Glenda will tell you that she'll pretty much talk to anyone, and in 15 minutes or less will have established a relationship and connect that person to someone else who can help them. Her sister Deb, who got the piano lessons growing up, quips, "But you got the long legs." Maybe that's why Judy Perdomo claimed the hashtag legs for days after walking her first runway fashion show this past spring. Wow, how awesome.
It was
A big smile and her curiosity intact, it leads her to wonder what's next. So what is next for you?
Oh, well, I can tell you here that my youngest son is now 17, and he's in grade 12, and he's been accepted to a university, hoping to hear from the other one that is his preferred. And so I guess that starts to open up the world for me in what is my next step. My other boys are 27 and 29, and they don't live in the house. And so this is a little scary, but I believe there's some freedom around that corner.
That's awesome. Yep, another journey, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So what prompted you to write a chapter for Sacred Hearts Rising?
Well, Becky, as long as I've been an entrepreneur, I've seen, which is about 15 years now, I've seen a number of my friends agree to participate in compilation books that I've called condominium books. And I've seen people like Jo Dibley launch her own memoir, Frock Off. And nothing ever really felt maybe that the timing was right. But in a conversation with her probably last May on our way up to Brenda's summit for Sacred Hearts Rising, I was talking to her about, I've got a bigger story that I want to tell. And so she really advised me that it was important to establish myself as an author. And so getting to know Brenda much better, who saved me from falling off a horse down in the Baja, I decided, well, Judy, maybe it's time. So I jumped in with Brenda, and because I'm really impressed with what she's done.
She's done amazing things. It's been beautiful to watch. And I've known her, I helped her with some of her earlier books before Sacred Hearts Rising.
Oh, you did you? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then come back around to kind of full swing here, because she was in one of my books called We Choose to Thrive. And nice. So it's...
I think I've seen the cover. Yeah, I think I've seen that book as well. Yeah.
And I just love the cover on her books. They're just beautiful.
Aren't they? They're really nice. Yeah, absolutely.
So your story, what do you do for a profession right now? You said you're an entrepreneur. What do you do?
Yes. I've been in alternative financing for about the last 15 years. Struggled my way through chartered accounting firms. Never really hit my mark there. And in about 2004, I made the plunge to become an entrepreneur, bought a franchised business, and it's in alternative financing. So this is an area that is not so well known by Canadians, Americans, because, the gold standard is to go to the bank and get a bank loan or a bank line when you're an entrepreneur. So we do, what some people would call more expensive forms of financing based on assets. And yes, that's what I do full time.
Very interesting. Well, you probably see a lot of different things that people encounter as they're trying to figure their way in that world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And probably over the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen even more as I've sort of decided, well, not sort of, but really made an intention to network in the places where I could be more connected with those who need the help that we provide. But, these are tough times. And I'm not going to lie that alternative finance, just like the banks, like everybody else, are being extremely cautious right now. So
very well, they have to be. Yeah. Kind of an uncertain time right now.
It is. Yeah.
So tell us about your chapter, just enough so that they want to go get that book and read it for themselves.
Okay. Well, the story that I've written is really about beliefs that were instilled in me, or beliefs that I somehow gathered in my life from an early age, probably from the age of 6 years old or so, that led me on a path. I always said that I never wanted to work in an office. I was going to be a, one of those people in the ocean, that was never going to see an office, and so on. So, and I didn't want to follow in my mother's footsteps. I always felt that she had given up her power a lot of time to my father. And, it's really interesting along the journey what I found out. So it's a pretty easy read, nothing horribly traumatic in it. So that might, spur others on, and maybe I'm revealing some secrets that others, even within my closest family with my sons, that they don't know yet.
It's interesting. And sometimes telling our stories, it's a powerful way. I think there's a lot of healing that comes and a lot of introspection from reading from writing our own stories, let alone coming back and reading them and then participating in a launch like this where we're speaking it out loud. We're talking about these things. But I think at a time like what we're living with right now, a worldwide change, it's time for all of us to stand up and speak up and let others know that are at some place a little confused about what's going next, and there's a lot of change going on. So it's time to shine the light, so to speak.
Sure.
To be there.
And I've learned that the waves never stop coming. So, it's been said, would you rather be in a sailboat with somebody who's an expert sailor who can navigate your way through even a hurricane? Or would you, rather be with somebody who's a novice? And that's a lot of what I've learned. But you're right. There's lots of inspiration and hope. And by sharing these chapters, I think it's a good time. I think it's a good time. People need a bit of a break from everything that they're listening to and hearing on the news. And so to pick up this book and, maybe not read the entire book at once, but to read a chapter every now and then, I think it's a great idea.
And not every chapter, I agree, it's not every chapter is going to suit every person, but I think there's such diversity in the chapters that were written that there's something for everyone, pretty much.
That's right. Yeah. And Brenda really pointed out as I was talking to her about my story, and she says, you just sit there and accept your story. Your story is not anybody else's story, and accept your story. And, maybe it's not as tragic as others and so on, because I read a number of the chapters in the first 2 books, and there's some pretty rough stuff in there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's time for all of us. I have a course that I teach that is called How to Become an Impactful Influencer. And I think at a time, actually, I've been thinking about relaunching it because it's such a time when people are really, really looking at what's going on, and it is a global thing. We're not in this all alone. it's a global thing. And there are people that have their children home for the first time, probably spending more time with their children than ever before.
Yes, I have friends with young children, and a gentleman I know who's got a brand new baby. And, as hard as it is for the moms of toddlers, and those would be some of my friends out there, and twins and all kinds of things, young children, time is something you can never get back. And so I think it is there's blessings in it. Now, tell me again what the name of that course is, Becky, that you're going to relaunch.
How to become an impactful influencer.
Oh, okay. How to become an impactful influencer. Well, I'm interested.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, I've been actually looking at kind of pulling it together. I've been actually speaking about it in a couple of live presentations, but I think now's the time to just dust it off and bring it back and, make it something, because there are a lot of things that we can do that will really make an impact on our world. And I think it's our responsibility to do that,
Yeah. Do you feel as though we're being called?
Yes. I think we've been prepared.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, with everything in my chapter, Riding the Waves, I feel that a lot of the practices, the self-care and the techniques that I've learned have really prepared me for this time. So now I'm actually having to use them in real time. And I'm even finding that there are times when it doesn't even feel like quite enough. Yesterday afternoon, I'd had quite a stressful day. I'd already been out for a midday walk, and I got in my car and I drove to a place called Bragg Creek, not that far from Calgary. The sun was shining. It was just glorious. And I was talking to my sister, and fantastic. So
self-care is so important. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
It's the time. So for somebody, if they're picking up the book for the first time, and for those that are listening or will be listening to the recording of this, if you haven't yet gone to Amazon and picked up Sacred Hearts Rising, Sparks of Life, please be sure and do so. It's a read that you'll want to come back to. You don't have to read the whole thing all at once. The Kindle version is 99 cents. So, you can read it at your convenience right off of your phone or whatever device you want to read it. But what would you say to somebody contemplating? They've been hearing some of the interviews, or maybe they've just heard yours. What would you say to somebody that was considering reading this book? What would you share with that special little nugget? You put me on the spot.
Sure. Put me on the spot. In my chapter, well, if you're somebody who struggles with boundaries and self-acceptance, and maybe have let others take advantage of you, read my chapter.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you for a very delightful interview. I'm happy. I know I've seen your name on Facebook, and I know we've connected in different ways all throughout the last bunch of years. So it's actually wonderful to meet you like this, and I hope we can stay connected
As well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.